The sun had barely risen over the jagged mountains of Caloria when Commander Aaron stood at the edge of the battlefield, his eyes scanning the horizon. Smoke rose in thick columns from shattered tanks and burned-out vehicles, and the air carried a metallic taste of iron and ash. The war with the Varelians had been raging for months, and every day brought new horrors. Yet nothing could have prepared him for the moment he lost sight of his daughter. Lyra had always been fearless. Even as a child, she had run across fields during storms, climbed trees taller than their home, and asked questions about the stars that left Aaron both amazed and worried. He had trained her himself, teaching her the basics of survival strategy and even combat drills. Though she had never been a soldier in the traditional sense, she was more than his daughter. She was a spark of hope in a world that had grown dark and uncertain. That morning, the Varelian forces had struck without warning. They had arrived like shadows across the valley, moving faster and more coordinated than Aaron had ever seen. The Calorian defense line was strong but stretched thin. Aaron commanded a small squad of elite soldiers, each hand-picked for courage and skill. Their mission was clear: hold the line until reinforcements arrived. Lyra had insisted on joining him. Aaron had argued, had begged, and had even threatened, but she refused to stay behind. "I can help," she had said, her voice steady and unwavering. "You always taught me to fight when it matters most. This matters." Aaron had no choice but to allow it. He reminded himself that she was clever, quick, and capable. He trusted her instincts. But the nagging worry in his chest refused to leave. The first clash was sudden and brutal. Varelian dropships descended from the sky like swarms of predatory insects, spilling soldiers and strange mechanical creatures that moved with unnatural speed. Explosions shook the ground, throwing men off their feet and leaving cratered scars across the valley. The air filled with screams, the roar of engines, and the sharp crack of energy weapons. Aaron barked orders, coordinating his squad to counter the attack. Lyra moved beside him, quick and precise, her eyes scanning for danger. She had learned to anticipate enemy moves, to predict their patterns, and to react before most soldiers even understood the threat. She disabled a small Varelian scout with a well-aimed shot, her hands steady even as chaos surrounded them. For a brief moment, Aaron felt pride wash over him. Then the world tilted. A massive explosion rocked the center of their formation. Aaron's vision blurred as debris flew through the air and a deafening roar filled his ears. When the smoke cleared, he saw her. Lyra had been caught in the blast. She was thrown backward, tumbling across the jagged rocks. Aaron's heart stopped. "Lyra," he shouted, running toward her, his legs pumping as if they carried the weight of the world. Soldiers tried to restrain him, but he pushed them aside, ignoring their shouts. All he could see was her small form lying motionless among the shattered terrain. The smoke was thick, stinging his eyes and throat. Flames licked the edges of the battlefield, and the cries of injured soldiers pierced the air. Aaron reached her, his hands shaking as he lifted her limp body. She was breathing, just barely, but her arm was pinned beneath a jagged piece of metal. "Hold on," he whispered, trying to free her. Pain tore through his chest, not from the fire or debris, but from the thought of losing her. With a surge of strength fueled by desperation, he lifted the metal and dragged her to safety behind a broken wall of stone. Blood had stained her uniform, and Aaron fought the rising panic in his chest. Medics arrived, and he was forced to step back as they assessed her injuries. Their faces were grave. "Commander," one said gently, "she's in shock. We need to move her to the field hospital now." Aaron nodded, his mind a whirlwind of fear and hope. He followed them, but every step felt heavier than the last. He could not imagine life without her. Every memory of her, the way she laughed, the way she argued with him, the way she looked up at the stars with wonder, flashed through his mind. The battle raged on around them, but Aaron barely noticed. His focus was entirely on Lyra. He reached for her hand, only to find it slipping from his grasp as she was carried away. And then, in a moment that would haunt him forever, a secondary explosion erupted nearby. Aaron turned just in time to see a group of Varelian soldiers advancing, their weapons aimed at the field hospital. Panic surged through him. He sprinted toward the building, only to be stopped by an officer shaking his head. "They're taking her, Commander," the officer said. "She's gone. Gone." The word echoed in Aaron's mind, hollow and cruel. He fell to his knees, the world tilting around him. He had lost countless soldiers in his career, but nothing compared to losing Lyra. She was not just a soldier. She was his daughter, the light that had guided him through the darkest times. And now, in the chaos of war, she had been taken, vanished as if swallowed by the very shadows of the battlefield. For hours, he searched. He scoured the valley, checked every survivor, interrogated every captured Varelian, but there was no sign of her. Every lead ended in a dead end. Exhaustion and despair began to gnaw at him, yet he refused to give up entirely. He could not. Lyra had survived storms, falls, and more danger than any child should face. Perhaps, he thought desperately, she had survived this too. At night, Aaron sat alone in his tent, staring at the stars that she had always loved. He whispered her name into the dark, hoping somehow she could hear him. He remembered teaching her the constellations, pointing out the bright star of Caloria's twin suns. "Lyra," he said softly, "if you are out there, come back to me. I will find you." Sleep eluded him. The sounds of war, the distant explosions, the crackle of fire, the cries of the injured, filled his dreams even when his eyes were closed. He imagined her captured, frightened, yet defiant. He imagined her courage shining through the fear, keeping her alive in a world determined to destroy her. And in those moments, a fragile hope took root. Maybe she was not gone. Maybe she would find a way back. Days passed. Aaron threw himself into planning the next phase of the war, coordinating defenses and strategies. His mind was sharp, his decisions precise, but his heart remained heavy. The soldiers noticed his quiet sorrow, the way he lingered over reports that mentioned missing children or prisoners. They offered words of encouragement, but nothing could fill the void left by Lyra's absence. And yet, among the despair, whispers began to reach him. Rumors of a human soldier performing extraordinary feats on the front lines. Humans were not fully trusted by the Calorians, often seen as unpredictable and stubborn. But this soldier, known as Captain Eli Mercer, was different. Reports described him rescuing prisoners from Varelian territory, surviving impossible situations, and showing a courage that inspired everyone around him. Aaron listened to these stories with a mixture of skepticism and hope. Could a human really have the skill to infiltrate Varelian lines and save prisoners? Could this soldier somehow have encountered Lyra? The thought was almost unbearable, yet he could not shake it from his mind. Each day, Aaron returned to the edge of the battlefield, scanning for any sign of her. Every figure that emerged from the smoke made his heart leap, until it proved to be a false alarm. Every report of survivors made him hope, then despair. And yet, even in the darkest moments, he refused to give up entirely, because hope was all he had left. Aaron had learned many lessons as a commander. He had learned that war could strip away everything: homes, cities, lives, even loved ones. He had learned that strength alone was not always enough to survive. But he had also learned that hope, courage, and determination could defy the odds, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. And he would need all of that, and more, to face the trials ahead. For now, he would wait. He would watch the horizon. He would prepare for the next battle, even as his heart ached for his daughter. Somewhere he knew Lyra was out there, alive, clever, and brave. And one day he believed she would return. Until then, Commander Aaron would endure the pain, fuel his resolve with hope, and remain vigilant. The war was far from over, and the story of his daughter was far from complete. Somewhere beyond the smoke and fire, across the shattered lands of Caloria, Lyra's fate was beginning to change. And when it did, it would not only reunite father and daughter, it would reveal a power in humanity that no one could have imagined. But that was a story for another day. The distant stars of the human fleet shimmered above the battlefield like tiny fires against the black void of space. Captain Eli Mercer adjusted his helmet and scanned the holographic map projected in front of him. Reports had come in of a Varelian supply convoy moving through a nearby asteroid belt. It was a small target, but its capture could save countless lives on the front lines. Humans were often underestimated in the war, seen as unpredictable and inexperienced. But Eli had a reputation that even the Varelians had begun to notice. He was not a soldier by birth. Eli had grown up on a mining colony, learning to navigate asteroids, repair machinery, and think quickly when danger approached. When the war began, he had enlisted not for glory, but to protect those who could not protect themselves. His resourcefulness and courage had earned him respect, though humans were still outsiders in the larger interstellar coalition fighting the Varelians. Eli's team was small but skilled. Each member had been carefully chosen for their abilities. Jara, a sharp-eyed scout with unmatched agility, Tovin, a technician who could hack almost any system, and Miko, a strategist who could plan several moves ahead in the chaos of battle. Together, they were a unit built on trust and efficiency. "Captain, sensors detect unusual energy signatures near the convoy," Jara said, pointing to the display. "It doesn't match known Varelian patterns." Eli leaned closer, analyzing the readings. "Could be a trap," he said, "or a test. Either way, we proceed cautiously. We're not just after supplies. We're looking for survivors, too." As their small fleet moved into position, Eli's mind drifted briefly to the rumors he had heard about Kalorian prisoners. Some spoke of young survivors, others of elite captives. One name had come up more than once: Lyra. He did not know her personally, but stories of her courage and intelligence had reached even the human ranks. The thought that she might be among those captured added weight to their mission, though Eli kept it quiet. Focus was key. Emotions could be dangerous in the field. The convoy was deeper into the asteroid belt than expected. Varelian patrol drones scanned the area, their glowing red sensors cutting through the darkness. Eli signaled his team to halt. "We'll split into 2 squads," he whispered. "Jara and Miko take the left flank. Tovin and I will approach from above. Stay in contact and remember, precision, not brute force." The plan worked. Using the shadows of the asteroids, Eli's squad approached the convoy undetected. The Varelian guards were efficient but not infallible, and Eli had learned to exploit every weakness. A single shot from Tovin disabled a security drone, while Miko guided Jara along a path that bypassed the main energy barriers. Every movement was calculated, every step deliberate. Inside one of the transport ships, they found cages containing prisoners. Some were Kalorian soldiers, others civilians from occupied territories. Eli's heart quickened as he scanned the room. One figure huddled in the corner, small and tense, her eyes bright with intelligence and alertness. "Sir?" Tovin whispered, pointing. "There, young Kalorian." "Could be the one." Eli nodded, stepping forward. "Stay calm," he said, his voice low. "We're getting you out of here." The young Kalorian looked at him with a mix of fear and curiosity. Eli could see the resolve in her eyes, even through the grime and exhaustion. He crouched beside her cage, keeping his hands visible. "I'm Captain Eli Mercer," he said gently. "You're safe now. We're taking you back with us." She hesitated, glancing at the Varelian guards still patrolling the area. I can't go yet," she said quietly. "They'll notice." Eli studied her carefully. "We'll make sure they don't. You have to trust me." Finally, after a tense moment, she nodded. Eli's team worked quickly, disabling the locks and guiding the prisoners out through a narrow maintenance tunnel. They moved silently, using the shadows of the asteroid belt to avoid patrols. Every step was a test of nerve, every turn a chance of discovery. As they emerged from the tunnel, Eli glanced at the young Kalorian. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she replied softly. Her voice was steady, but Eli could sense the weight of her experience. She had survived days, maybe weeks, in Varelian captivity, and the trauma had not broken her spirit. "Lyra," Eli repeated. "You're safe now. We'll get you back to our base, and then we'll figure out the next steps." Lyra studied him carefully. "You're human," she said, almost as if testing herself. "Why would you risk so much for me?" Eli smiled faintly. "Because no one should be left behind, and because sometimes the smallest spark can change the course of a war." Her eyes widened slightly, as if the idea was both foreign and comforting. For a moment, the noise of the war, the explosions, the distant battle cries, seemed to fade, leaving only the quiet determination of 2 beings from different worlds, united by circumstance and courage. The return trip was tense. Varelian patrols scoured the asteroid belt, searching for missing prisoners. Eli's team had to navigate carefully, using every trick they had learned over months of combat. Asteroids provided cover, but they also blocked communications and sensors, leaving them vulnerable. Every shadow could hide danger, every sound could be an alarm. Lyra proved invaluable. She guided them through sections of the belt that she had memorized during captivity, avoiding patrols and hazards. Her knowledge of Varelian tactics was precise, gained from months of observation and survival. Eli was impressed, not just by her intelligence, but by her courage. Despite everything she had endured, she refused to be passive. Almost there, Eli whispered as they approached the human outpost. The small station floated like a jewel in the void, lights blinking against the darkness. Relief washed over the team, but Eli kept his focus sharp. The Varelians were never far behind. When they docked, medics and security personnel rushed to assist the prisoners. Lyra was checked carefully for injuries. She had scratches, bruises, and exhaustion etched into every line of her face, but she was alive. More than alive. She was alert, her mind already processing the events and planning the next steps. Eli watched as she interacted with the humans, noting her cautious but confident approach. She asked questions, observed patterns, and offered suggestions for improving security. Even in captivity, she had learned to survive. Now she was ready to adapt to freedom. Later, Eli found a quiet corner and removed his helmet, running a hand through his hair. His team had done well and the mission was a success, but he could not shake the thought of the father searching for this girl, not knowing if she was alive. Somewhere out there, someone was waiting, hoping, praying, and he had brought a small piece of that hope back into the world. He did not know it yet, but Lyra's return would not only change the course of her own life, it would ripple across the stars. Her skills, knowledge, and courage would soon become vital in the struggle against the Varelians, and her alliance with humanity would inspire trust and unity between species long at odds. For now, Eli simply watched as Lyra recovered, understanding that every moment of care, every choice of protection, was a step toward something larger. The humans had their role to play and Lyra had hers. Together they would face challenges that neither could overcome alone. The stars outside the station seemed brighter that night, as if they too recognized the fragile hope that had returned. Eli thought of the stories he had heard about Calorian captives and the extraordinary courage they displayed, and now he realized that courage was not just a story, it was standing right beside him. As the outpost settled into quiet vigilance, Eli felt a spark of excitement and determination. The war was far from over, but for the first time in months there was a glimmer of possibility. A young Calorian survivor, freed by human ingenuity and bravery, represented more than just hope for her own life. She represented the potential of humans and Calorians working together, combining strength, intelligence, and courage to face a seemingly unstoppable enemy. Eli watched Lyra from across the room. She studied the star maps, her eyes scanning routes and possibilities. He could see the resilience in her posture, the sharpness in her mind. And he knew that the story of her survival and the role of humans in that story was only beginning. Tomorrow the war would continue. Varelian forces would not stop. Battles would rage and lives would be tested. But tonight Eli allowed himself to believe that humanity had made a difference. They had saved a life. They had restored hope. And sometimes he knew, hope was the most powerful weapon of all. Commander Aaron sat in his command tent, staring at the holographic star map of Caloria's front lines. The war had taken everything from him, lives, resources, and hope, but nothing compared to the pain of losing Lyra. Every day since that attack, he had searched through reports, interrogated prisoners, and scanned battlefields for any sign of her. Every lead ended in disappointment, every rumor in despair. Yet a whisper reached him that day. A rumor that a human soldier, known for daring rescues, had returned from behind Varelian lines with prisoners. His heart, which had been weighed down with grief for weeks, began to race. Could it be true? Could his daughter, thought lost forever, be alive? Aaron demanded a meeting with the human commander immediately. He was cautious but desperate. He had been trained to trust strategy, data, and careful observation. But no training could prepare a father for this kind of hope. When Eli Mercer arrived, Aaron observed him carefully. The human was tall, confident, and calm, yet Aaron sensed an unusual intensity in his eyes. There was competence, yes, but also something deeper. Courage, intelligence, and a quiet determination that suggested he had faced challenges beyond imagination. Aaron's instincts told him that this man was not to be underestimated. "Commander Aaron," Eli said, bowing slightly, "I was informed you requested a meeting." "Yes," Aaron replied, his voice steady but controlled. "Reports say you returned with Calorian prisoners." "I need details," Eli nodded. "We infiltrated a Varelian convoy. We found several captives, including one young Calorian who had been held for weeks. She was cautious at first, but she's safe now." Aaron's pulse quickened. "Her name?" "Lyra," Eli said carefully. Lyra Kalorian. Time seemed to slow. Aaron could feel his chest tightening, the memories of the battlefield flooding back. He had thought her gone, thought he had failed to protect her, thought the war had taken his daughter forever, and yet here she was alive, standing beside a human soldier. I need to see her, Aaron said, his voice firm despite the tremor he felt inside. Eli led him through the bustling human outpost. Soldiers and medics moved with practiced efficiency, tending to the wounded and organizing supplies. The air was filled with the faint hum of machinery and the low murmur of strategy discussions. And then, in a quiet corner of the station, Aaron saw her, Lyra, his daughter. She was sitting on a medical bench, her uniform dusty and torn, her face tired but alert. Her eyes met his, and for a moment the chaos of the universe seemed to vanish. She was alive. She was real. She had survived. "Father," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling slightly but full of emotion. Aaron rushed forward, kneeling beside her. "Lyra," he said, holding her hands in his. "I thought I had lost you. I thought you were gone forever." "I'm here now," she said softly, "thanks to him." She glanced at Eli, her expression both cautious and grateful. "He saved me." Aaron looked up at Eli, suspicion and curiosity mixing in his gaze. "You saved her?" Eli nodded. "Yes, Commander. She was among the prisoners we rescued from a Varelian convoy. I couldn't leave her behind." Aaron's eyes narrowed slightly. He was not quick to trust outsiders, especially humans whose unpredictable nature had caused friction in the alliance. But the truth was undeniable. Eli had done what many could not. He had returned with Lyra alive. "Why?" Aaron asked, not out of anger but out of genuine curiosity. "Why risk so much for a child who is not your own?" Eli met his gaze steadily. "Because in war, sometimes the smallest acts can change everything. She is important, not just as your daughter, but as someone with knowledge, courage, and skill. She can help us, and she deserves a chance to survive." Aaron studied him carefully, searching for any hint of deception. There was none. He could see the sincerity in Eli's eyes, the quiet determination, the courage that had already proven itself in countless battles. Reluctantly, Aaron nodded. "Very well. I see your intentions are true. But understand this, Lyra is my daughter. Her safety is my responsibility. I will not allow her to be endangered again." "You won't have to," Eli replied. "I understand." The tension between them eased slightly, though Aaron's protective instincts remained strong. He turned back to Lyra, who was now smiling faintly, a mixture of relief and curiosity in her expression. "Father," she said, her voice steadier now, "this human, he saved my life. I owe him more than I can say." Aaron looked at her, his heart heavy with emotion. He knew she was right. He had trained her to fight, to survive, to be clever and resourceful. But it was humanity's courage and ingenuity that had brought her home. And yet, the sight of her alive, standing before him, was all that mattered. Over the next hours, Aaron and Eli shared information about the recent Varelian movements, strategies, and intelligence. Aaron observed Eli closely, noting his calm under pressure, his strategic mind, and his ability to adapt quickly. The human approached problems in ways Kalorians had not considered, combining creativity with logic. Aaron could not deny that humanity possessed qualities that even the most disciplined Kalorian soldier often lacked: resilience, adaptability, and a stubborn determination that refused to yield, even in impossible circumstances. Lyra, meanwhile, began to recover physically and mentally. The trauma of captivity weighed on her, but she faced it with the same determination that had carried her through weeks of imprisonment. She recounted her experiences quietly, never dwelling on fear or despair but offering insights into Varelian behavior, patrol patterns, and weaknesses. Her observations were precise and intelligent, demonstrating a sharp mind honed by both her Kalorian training and the necessity of survival. Eli listened carefully, asking questions and taking notes. He recognized her potential, not just as a survivor but as a partner in the war effort. The bond between them grew quickly, built on mutual respect, trust, and the shared experience of the battlefield. Later that evening, Aaron and Eli stood on a balcony overlooking the outpost. The stars sparkled above them, vast and silent, a reminder of both the beauty and danger of the universe. Aaron spoke first, his voice quiet but firm. I have lived many years in war, he said. I have seen soldiers fall, cities burn, and alliances crumble. But I have never encountered courage like hers, and now I see it reflected in you. Eli looked at him, surprised but honored. Thank you, Commander. I only do what I must. Sometimes what we must do changes the course of everything, Aaron replied. I see that now. And I must admit, humans are stronger than I ever imagined. Eli smiled faintly. We can learn from each other, Commander. Kaelorians and humans together. There is strength in unity. Aaron nodded. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to believe it. There was hope, not just for his daughter, but for the war itself. Humanity had shown its value not through brute force, but through courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when others might hesitate. Back inside, Lyra was studying star charts with the medics, already thinking ahead. She had plans, ideas, and questions. She was no longer a child lost in the chaos of war. She was a survivor, a thinker, and a strategist. And she had humans at her side, allies who could help her navigate the dangers yet to come. That night, Aaron finally allowed himself to rest, though his mind remained alert. He thought of the battlefield, of the soldiers who had fought bravely and those who had been lost. He thought of Lyra, alive and growing stronger every day, and of Eli, the human who had restored a piece of hope to their war-torn universe. In the silence, he made a promise to protect his daughter, to honor her courage, and to learn from those who had helped her survive. The war was far from over, but with Lyra by his side and humans as allies, he believed they could face the challenges ahead. Somewhere beyond the outpost, the Varelians were preparing their next move, unaware that the bonds of trust and courage between Kaelorians and humans were growing stronger with every passing moment. And when the next battle came, they would face a united front, where intelligence, bravery, and the will to survive would shine brighter than any weapon. For Aaron, the reunion was more than relief, it was a new beginning. And for Lyra, it was the first step in turning her captivity into a story of resilience, hope, and unexpected alliances. The galaxy was vast, the war far from over, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of light in the darkness, a human spark that promised courage, unity, and the possibility of victory. The morning light stretched across the human outpost like a promise, painting the metal walls in gold and silver. Commander Aaron stood on the observation deck, his eyes following the routines of the soldiers below. The battlefield was quiet for now, but the war had taught him that peace was always temporary. Lyra, recovered from her injuries and more alert than ever, moved beside him. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the horizon, her mind already calculating strategies. We cannot waste time, Aaron said, his voice low but firm. The Varelians will strike again. We need to be ready, stronger, faster, and smarter. Lyra nodded. I understand, Father, but we are not alone anymore. Humans are here, and they can help us. Aaron turned to Eli, who was coordinating training exercises with a group of Kaelorian soldiers. The human commander's presence had shifted the atmosphere of the outpost. Where fear and caution had once prevailed, now determination and curiosity filled the air. Soldiers watched Eli closely, learning from his unconventional methods, while he in turn studied Kaelorian techniques, adapting them with precision and creativity. Captain Mercer, Aaron called, approaching him. How do you plan to train our soldiers? Eli glanced up from his tablet, smiling faintly. I start with what they already know and then challenge them to think differently. Predictable tactics can be anticipated. Creativity and adaptability are just as important as strength and speed. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Creativity? Yes, Eli said simply. Humans have a way of solving problems that others might not consider. We improvise, we adapt, and we find a way even when the odds seem impossible. Aaron considered this. Kaelorian soldiers were disciplined, precise, and technologically advanced. But Eli's words carried weight. The humans' victories in the field were proof enough. Perhaps it was time to combine their strengths, Kaelorian strategy and human ingenuity. The training began immediately. Kaelorian soldiers followed Aaron's strict instructions, drilling routines and formations with precision. Humans demonstrated unconventional methods, rapid maneuvers, improvised traps, and creative uses of equipment that Kaelorians had never considered. At first, some Kaelorians were skeptical, hesitant to abandon tradition, but Eli encouraged collaboration rather than competition, showing that combining the two approaches could create unexpected advantages. Lyra watched intently, absorbing every movement, every lesson. Her time in captivity had taught her observation, patience, and cleverness. She quickly grasped both Calorian and human strategies, often suggesting improvements that caught even seasoned soldiers off guard. Eli noticed her ability to adapt, her mind calculating patterns and anticipating threats with remarkable speed. "You're quick," Eli said one afternoon, watching her demonstrate a maneuver that integrated both human improvisation and Calorian precision. "Most experienced soldiers take weeks to learn that," Lyra smiled faintly. "I had time to think while I was captured. I learned to notice patterns and predict what comes next. It helped me survive." Eli nodded, impressed. "Then we'll use that. You can help train others, show them how to combine skill with creativity." Aaron observed this quietly. He felt a mix of pride and relief. Lyra had returned not just alive but stronger, smarter, and more capable than he had imagined. The daughter he had feared lost was now becoming a symbol of resilience and hope. And through her he began to see the value in humans, not just as allies but as partners in the fight against a formidable enemy. Over the next days, the outpost transformed. Soldiers moved with greater confidence, coordinating tactics that combined Calorian technology and human ingenuity. Training simulations became complex exercises in problem-solving, with unexpected challenges designed to test creativity, teamwork, and adaptability. Eli and Lyra worked closely together, devising strategies that pushed both humans and Calorians to think beyond their training. During one simulation, a small squad was tasked with infiltrating a Varelian outpost in a desert system. The team encountered unexpected obstacles: collapsed tunnels, energy barriers, and automated patrol drones. The Calorian soldiers initially froze, following protocol rigidly. Eli and Lyra intervened, guiding them to improvise, using their surroundings and predicting the movements of the enemy. By the end of the exercise, the squad had completed the mission flawlessly, a combination of discipline and innovation driving their success. Aaron watched from a distance, his arms crossed, a thoughtful expression on his face. He could see the change in his soldiers, their confidence, their resourcefulness, and their trust in one another. Humans and Calorians were learning to work as one, and he realized that this unity could become a decisive advantage in the battles to come. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Aaron, Lyra, and Eli stood on a platform overlooking the training grounds. The soldiers were winding down, their laughter and chatter echoing across the outpost. The moment felt almost peaceful, a rare reprieve from the constant stress of war. "You've done well," Aaron said quietly to Eli. "Not just with training, but with Lyra. You've earned her trust and mine." Eli nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "Trust is earned, Commander. And she earned mine first. She's brave, intelligent, and unbroken. That kind of courage deserves respect." Aaron glanced at Lyra. She was watching the soldiers below, her eyes reflecting determination and pride. "She has grown stronger," he admitted softly. "Her time in captivity did not break her. It sharpened her mind. And now she can help us in ways I never imagined." Lyra turned toward them, a quiet smile on her face. "I learned a lot, Father. About survival, about observation, and about working with others, even humans, I think. I think we can really make a difference together." Eli's eyes met hers, filled with respect. "You already are making a difference. Your knowledge, your courage, it's inspiring." The three of them stood in silence for a moment, letting the calm of the evening settle around them. The stars above were bright, a reminder that beyond the battles and destruction there was still beauty in the universe. And in that beauty there was hope, a hope that humans and Calorians, united by courage and intelligence, could face any challenge the Varelians threw at them. Over the next week, preparations intensified. Aaron, Eli, and Lyra worked together to develop offensive and defensive strategies, combining Calorian technology with human innovation. Lyra's observations from her captivity proved invaluable. She knew Varelian patrol patterns, supply routes, and weak points that had previously gone unnoticed. Eli suggested creative ways to exploit these weaknesses, using small, nimble teams to disrupt the enemy without risking large forces. Aaron oversaw the planning, ensuring that every operation balanced strategy and adaptability. The soldiers noticed the difference in morale. Confidence was returning, even in the face of an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. Humans and Kalorians shared techniques, taught each other lessons, and learned to trust instincts as well as protocol. The synergy between species created a new kind of strength, one that combined discipline, creativity, and courage. During a night briefing, Aaron addressed his officers. The Varelians are relentless, but they underestimate us. They see humans as unpredictable, Kalorians as precise. But together, we are stronger than they imagine. We will strike where they do not expect. We will adapt when they anticipate. And we will survive because we refuse to give up. Lyra added, her voice clear and steady. We have learned from the enemy as well. We know their weaknesses, their patterns, and their limits. If we work together, humans and Kalorians, we can change the course of this war. Eli nodded in agreement. And we will. Every step we take, every choice we make will be guided by intelligence, courage, and cooperation. The Varelians cannot predict creativity and they cannot defeat unity. The officers exchanged glances, absorbing the words. Confidence spread through the room like wildfire. The alliance between humans and Kalorians was no longer just a necessity. It was becoming a source of hope, innovation, and determination. As the briefing ended, Aaron took a moment to observe Lyra and Eli working together. She suggested improvements to a tactical simulation, and Eli listened carefully, asking questions and offering guidance. Their interaction was seamless, a blend of mutual respect, trust, and shared purpose. It was a partnership that promised great results, not just for the upcoming battles, but for the future of the war itself. That night, Aaron returned to his quarters with a sense of quiet satisfaction. Lyra was safe, stronger, and prepared to face the challenges ahead. Humans had proven their value, not only as allies but as partners in strategy and problem-solving. And together, they had created a force that the Varelians could not easily predict or overcome. For Aaron, hope was no longer just a fragile flicker. It was growing into a steady flame, fueled by courage, intelligence, and the bond between humans and Kalorians. And he knew that when the next battle came, they would face it not as divided species, but as a united force, ready, determined, and capable of turning the tide of war. The stars shone above the outpost, bright and endless, and in their light, Aaron, Lyra, and Eli prepared for the battles to come, confident that together they could overcome even the most formidable enemy. The sun barely rose over the jagged peaks of the desert planet Corellis when Commander Aaron assembled the combined Kalorian-human strike team. Today was the day of their first joint mission, a true test of the strategies, skills, and trust that had been forged over weeks of training. The Varelians had established a heavily fortified outpost in the region, guarding vital supplies and intelligence. Capturing it could tip the balance of power in the sector. Aaron's eyes swept across the assembled soldiers, taking in the Kalorian precision and human ingenuity. Lyra stood beside him, reviewing holographic maps with Eli, her focus sharp. Together the three formed the leadership triad: Kalorian strategy, human innovation, and Lyra's unique insight from her captivity. This mission would not only test the soldiers' skills but also the strength of their alliance. Remember, Aaron said, his voice steady, the Varelians expect predictable tactics. We will give them something they cannot predict. Use your training, trust each other, and adapt to the situation. Failure is not an option, but flexibility is our greatest weapon. Eli stepped forward, his calm presence balancing Aaron's intensity. We move in small units. Kalorian squads provide firepower and cover, while humans handle infiltration, sabotage, and unconventional maneuvers. Coordination is key. Communication, observation, and creativity will save lives. Lyra pointed to a narrow canyon on the holographic display. If we approach through this path, we can avoid the main patrols. There are weak points in their energy shields, and I've marked locations where automated defenses are less effective. It's risky, but it's the fastest way in and out. Aaron studied the map, weighing the options. The plan was daring, but he trusted Lyra's observations. They had proven accurate before. He nodded. Very well. We follow her path. Stay alert. Eli, you and I will coordinate with the squads. Move when the signal is given. The soldiers moved out, the desert wind whipping around them as they approached the canyon. The Varelian outpost lay hidden behind rocky ridges, its towering walls and glowing energy shields visible in the distance. Drones hovered in the sky, scanning for movement. Every step brought tension, every shadow a potential threat. Eli led the first infiltration unit, using shadows and the terrain to their advantage. Kael'orian soldiers provided covering fire from a distance, ensuring that the Varelians remained unaware of the humans' approach. Lyra guided the team with precise directions, her memory of Varelian patrol patterns saving them from discovery. "Left, then down," she whispered, pointing to a narrow crevice. "A drone passes every 10 seconds. Timing is everything." The humans moved with quiet precision, adapting as obstacles appeared. One small Varelian patrol emerged unexpectedly. Instead of firing blindly, Eli signaled the team to use a diversion, a carefully timed rock slide that sent the patrol scrambling while the humans slipped past unnoticed. Aaron observed from a ridge above, impressed by the coordination. The combination of Kael'orian firepower and human ingenuity was working seamlessly. Inside the outpost, the team faced automated defenses and locked doors. Lyra analyzed the control panels, recognizing patterns she had memorized during captivity. She guided Tovin, the human technician, in disabling key security systems without triggering alarms. Each movement was calculated, each step precise. "Almost there," Lyra whispered. "One more energy barrier, then we reach the central storage and communication hub." The final stretch tested the soldiers' nerves. A Varelian drone detected movement and alarms blared across the outpost. The Kael'orians unleashed controlled volleys to suppress the enemy, while humans darted between cover, improvising traps and distractions. Lyra stayed close to Eli, her mind calculating paths and contingencies, ensuring no one was exposed unnecessarily. They reached the hub. Inside, shelves of data cores, weapons, and supplies gleamed under harsh lights. Aaron and Eli coordinated the extraction, dividing responsibilities. Kael'orian squads secured the perimeter. Humans collected intelligence and sabotaged critical equipment, and Lyra guided them, pointing out items of importance and weak points that could be exploited to hinder the Varelians' operations. Suddenly, a Varelian commander appeared, flanked by guards. The team froze for a split second before Eli acted. Using a combination of Kael'orian precision and human improvisation, he launched a small diversion, a smoke grenade that filled the room with a dense mist. Lyra moved to block the commander's path, using quick thinking to confuse and mislead the enemy. Kael'orian soldiers engaged with calculated strikes, ensuring no unnecessary harm while maintaining control of the situation. Within moments, the Varelian commander was subdued and the team secured the hub. Data cores containing critical intelligence were extracted, along with supplies and information about upcoming enemy movements. Every member of the team had performed with precision, courage, and adaptability. The mission was a success, but the true victory lay in the seamless cooperation between humans and Kael'orians, a partnership that neither side had fully realized before. As they made their way back through the canyon, Aaron allowed himself a rare moment of relief. He glanced at Lyra, who walked with confidence, her eyes scanning for potential threats even as she carried a sense of accomplishment. Eli moved beside her, coordinating the retreat and ensuring the team remained undetected. The trust and mutual respect between them were evident. Humans and Kael'orians, working together as equals, had achieved what neither could have done alone. Back at the outpost, the team was greeted with cheers and gratitude. Soldiers exchanged stories of narrow escapes and clever maneuvers, each account highlighting the importance of collaboration. Aaron addressed the assembled troops, his voice strong and proud. "Today we proved that unity is our greatest weapon," he said. "Kael'orians and humans working together can overcome challenges that would be impossible alone. Your courage, intelligence, and adaptability have changed the course of this battle. Let this be a reminder. No matter how strong the enemy may seem, we can prevail when we trust and support one another." Lyra stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. "This mission shows that survival depends not only on strength but on observation, planning, and the courage to act. We have learned from each other, and together we are stronger than ever before." Eli nodded, addressing both humans and Kael'orians. "This is only the beginning. The enemy will continue to challenge us, but if we continue to work together, combining strategy, innovation, and bravery, we can turn the tide of this war. Today, we have proven that humans are not just allies. They are a force that can inspire, protect, and create possibilities even in the darkest moments." The soldiers erupted in applause, their morale soaring, The mission had been difficult, dangerous, and unpredictable, but the results were undeniable. Intelligence gathered, supplies captured, and the outpost disrupted meant that the Varelians' hold on the region had weakened. More importantly, humans and Calorians had demonstrated a new form of strength, the power of cooperation, trust, and ingenuity. That night, as the outpost settled into quiet vigilance, Aaron, Lyra, and Eli stood together, reviewing reports and planning the next steps. The bonds formed in the heat of battle were now cemented in mutual respect and shared purpose. "You did well," Aaron said quietly to Eli. "Your leadership saved lives today. Not just Calorian lives, but human lives as well, and most importantly, you helped bring my daughter home and keep her safe." Eli smiled faintly. "I only did what needed to be done. Lyra is extraordinary. Her courage and intelligence made this mission possible. I simply helped guide her and the team." Lyra looked between them, her expression serious but calm. "We all contributed. Humans, Calorians, together. This is how we win. Not alone, but united." Aaron nodded, feeling a profound sense of hope. He realized that the true strength of his daughter's return was not just in her survival, but in the unity she symbolized. Humans and Calorians could work together, learn from one another, and face challenges that had once seemed insurmountable. Outside, the stars of Corrales twinkled like distant fires, silent witnesses to the bravery, intelligence, and ingenuity displayed on the battlefield. Aaron felt a surge of determination. The war was far from over, but today had shown him that hope was more than a fragile flicker. It was a guiding light, capable of inspiring courage and unity in the darkest moments. And as he looked at Lyra and Eli, he knew that this light would not fade. The bond between humans and Calorians, forged in battle, tested by strategy and strengthened by trust, would continue to grow. Together they would face the next challenge and the one after that with resilience, creativity, and courage. For the first time in weeks, Aaron allowed himself to believe not only in survival but in victory. The Varelians were formidable, but they could not anticipate the power of unity, intelligence, and human ingenuity combined with Calorian strength. Today had proven that, and tomorrow promised even greater possibilities. The mission had been a success, but it had also revealed something more important. Humans were not merely allies, they were a vital part of a strategy, a source of creativity, courage, and hope that could change the course of war. And with Lyra alive, safe, and standing beside them, the future looked brighter than it had in years.